Good morning. Thank you for that welcome. And I was hosted, I want to say this out loud on the recording, by the Bartons last night. Kirsten is a gem. I think I'm going to keep her in my life. I know you guys get her on a weekly basis, but she's going to become someone in my life. I did just do a week of work, so I'm just going to introduce myself really quickly and why am I the one standing here? I was a teacher. Then I became a lawyer, a public defender specifically, then a university administrator working in Title IX, which is all around sexual misconduct, and then moved about 6 years ago to the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, which is the congressionally charged entity that does all the investigations, anything under the Olympic umbrella. So for 6 years, I've been leading a team of investigators. We specifically work in the sports arena, but with putting all my life together. I was raised in the church. I have been a teacher and been at the university level as well, and now I'm in the sporting world. And if we want to talk about sort of sexual abuse and a way that kids get preyed upon, those three places are three of the largest places it happens. And so I feel privileged at this point in my life as a mom and someone who's worked in all these areas to get to now take these gifts and give them to you. I will smile because that's naturally me, but these are hard topics. So we're gonna do this together, okay? We're gonna spend probably about an hour and 15 going through quite a bit of things. Then I wanna leave time for you to ask questions and me to maybe come down a little bit out of the light and us talk. But that's our goals for this time. But when I had asked why did I end up in this work, working with the DRM, which I love, in making policy, and I'm a reports receiver as well. So any report that gets made in the DRM about concerns, I'm on the team that hears it and makes decisions about what should go back to the bishop and what should be investigated. I am here because of my father. When I look back, my father was a small town minister. He was not an expert in sexual abuse. He wasn't an expert in anything but being a very lovely, humble preacher of the word to a small congregation on a small island north of Seattle. That's all I remember him as a kid, was he was already the pastor, and that's all I knew. In the late 1980s, a woman in the church came to him and said that she suspected her husband was sexually abusing their foster daughters. He, hearing that report, had to put aside a lot of things. A friendship he had with this man, the position that man played in our community, not only our church community, but our wider community. Concerns about how it might reflect on him as the pastor of this church. He set those aside. He walked with her over the next, actually many years, of making reports, sitting in CPS meetings, as they decided whether she was going to be able to keep her kids or not, helped her keep her house, went to the bank, ended up sentencing hearings that man went to prison. Kids testified against him, and my dad went and walked with that family through all of that. And this would have been in the late 80s through the early 90s. So not a time when issues like this, the church was always doing the best in these issues. And those were the decisions my father made. I knew, those were all in the back of my mind, like I knew what my dad was doing, but I didn't really understand what any of that meant until I was much older. And my father passed 5 years ago. And at the funeral, that woman came to me and grabbed my hands and said, because of your dad, I kept my kids, I kept my house. Like I got to live the rest of my life, even though that horrible thing happened. And looking back now, my dad was setting this foundation for me and this road and this path that I did not know about. And now I feel very honored and blessed to get to be in a position to help other families now, not just walk through hard things, but prepare the rest of the church to walk alongside others. And I truly believe it is a community responsibility, and we'll talk about that, that we all are a part of. Whether you are a parent here or you're just someone who is around the kids of the church or a grandparent, every member of the church, we get to play in a really important role to be the eyes and the ears, and sometimes the feet and the arms and the hands to actually walk out some of this. So I'm going to invite you into that with me today, and we're going to do this together. We're going to look at it from a few different ways. I am going to walk us through, because I don't get a chance to do this very often with real humans, is I'm just going to go through the actual safe church policy that has been created for the DRM. We'll go through it pretty quickly and just hit the highlights. At any point, start texting questions, and then at the end, if I've covered it, we'll just move on to other ones, but please utilize that time. And then we're going to talk about safety inside the home and then safety outside the home. Here's my ground rules. Leave if necessary at any point. No one is going to look. I definitely will not look another way because you need to leave. We're going to talk about things that have impacted most of the people in this room in some way or another, whether you personally or someone around you. And I've found that as we talk about it, some people realize, oh, maybe something happened to somebody around me, and I didn't know how to respond as the 12-year-old I was then. Of course you didn't. But those things can come back up now. And so what I would encourage you, if that does, leave, get the space you want, or write it down, find someone you can trust after, and walk that through with them. I don't want anything we do here to just become a hurdle, but use this as an opportunity to hear God's voice in places that he wants to maybe even heal places in you. And that together then we can be a safe church for everyone. I'm going to use the word safety. That also can be a hard word for people because guess what? We're not promised absolute safety, right? We know that very well. I think my therapist would say, she would say, it is very important that we as Christians realize that bad things are going to happen, right? And that's when our theology becomes really important and what we believe about this God and who this God is that we serve. And so when I say safety, I'm just talking about steps we can take for prevention, but we're not promising absolute safety. So don't hear that when you hear that word. And I'm going to speak honestly. I work in a job where I am reviewing reports with my team and then going out and investigating really hard things every day. So this is a world I live in a little bit. So I will speak very honestly, which might be hard, but just bear with me, because I think actually that honesty is one of the ways we are going to be a safe church, and we're going to be safe families. If we can talk using real words around this and bring the things that have been hidden into the light, which is the picture that over and over God continues to give those in this work of we are shining a light into dark places. No one likes that. It is bringing things out, but that is God's work. So we're going to do that together. So that's our goal. Again, at any point if you have questions, send them in the text and we'll see what comes out in the end. Even if they're things we end up covering, that's going to be fine. So I come from the position that safeguarding is a collective responsibility. So what do I mean by that? This is a work that no one can do alone, ever. Whether you are someone who has been reported to, someone comes to you and they report something, it is really important that you realize that whatever steps you take, you're not making them alone. And the work we do and the eyes we need to have to keep things safe in our churches, it's not anyone's one job. It has to be a joint collective job. And I believe that is the example that Jesus sort of taught us, right? I keep coming back to Philippians 2. Whenever I am asked to stand in front of my own church, I do this training for my church every fall. We get our volunteers back all together. Or if I'm talking to clergy about this, I come back to Philippians 2, and that's the heart and the humility of Jesus. So I'm going to read just shortly from Philippians 2. I'm going to start at verse 3. Do nothing out of rivalry or conceit, but in humility, consider others as more important than yourselves. Everyone should look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interest of others. Make your own attitude that of Christ Jesus, who, existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be used for his own advantage. Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a slave, taking on the likeness of men. And when he had come as a man in his external form, he humbled himself by being obedient to the point of death, even to death on a cross. We serve a Savior who was willing to become vulnerable And in that vulnerability, he did not use the power he could have, but instead humbled himself. This verse 4, always stands out to me of everyone should look out not only for their own interests, but also the interests of others. I think that's a clear exhortation for us to do this work together. But then I love verse 7, and as my pastor reminds me when he preaches, is that because we serve a God who is gentle and kind and generous and humble, we then are called into that work with him. And so that is the work we do, and we have to do it together because it is not it's not anything we can do alone. So the way that is worked out in the DRM is this. Every church is asked to follow the safety policy, the safe church policy that's been created. So how does that work out? Let's talk for a minute. I am standing right now here at Wellspring. I am looking at the amount of chairs here. I go to a church in a small town in the Willamette Valley where we have on most Sundays 100 adults and about 50 kids. We are very different. We have a different sort of, the people that sit in our pews look different than any other church. We're small. And so when we go to write this safe church policy, I am thankful for friendships with people like Bree, who is at I see it as a big church. I know maybe in like Colorado standards, it's not a big church, but in the DRM it is. But we have to think through, if we're gonna do a policy and we want every church to follow this, how can it work for the small church where every parent has to be involved in a volunteer in order to get all the kids covered, and churches that are big and have more people that aren't known? And how do we bring that into one? So that is how we try to think through the policy every time. So I'm gonna take us through, there's 5 major parts of that policy. And if you are how many here do not have kids in your own home? Awesome. So do you end up working with the kids here at church through different ways? Yeah. So what this policy was set up for is obviously our clergy and our church staffs, but then all our volunteers. And then I think it's really important that then our parents know it, because the things that have been written into this policy, and you're gonna see this as we talk, you can grab the nuggets and the good things about it and start applying it in the different places of your life for safety. So I wanna show sort of that progression as we go. But let's start with just the church policy that's been created. So it starts with screening. It just lays out who needs to be screened and what kind of screening that is. So that's screenings, background checks. Those of you who've been a volunteer have had to go through those things. It lays out who needs to do it. So from clergy all the way through to volunteers. I call this the lowest of low bars when it comes to it, right? It's a background check. Usually it's through the state patrol of whatever state you're in. It's really just checks like, is there criminal charges, things like that. It's a low bar, right, when it comes to, but it's a very necessary bar, and it's where you start. And that's why we wanna make sure for safety that we start there. It then lays out who needs to be trained. The training that the DRM uses is called Ministry Safe. Someone tell me if I'm wrong. That's what I'm remembering that it is. Again, in the world of like sexual abuse prevention trainings, it's a pretty low bar. It's a pretty accessible one. It doesn't take very long, but it hits the highlights. So if we want to do something to make sure everybody's at least on the same level, it is great, because everyone's going to have some common knowledge, some common sort of ideas of why this is important. And then what happens is each church has to fill out an annual church compliance form. And for those of you who've been in churches all your lives, this is such a big deal to me that we're in a diocese that holds churches accountable to this. Are you background checking everyone? Are you training everyone? So that we know, just at the very lowest level, that as people come into this work. There are other rules around this. I think you have to be in a church 6 months before you can be a volunteer with children. There's other things that go around this. They're just laying out the idea that we want people who are known before we have them working with our kids. And I'm gonna talk a lot about kids, but we'll see, we're gonna talk about other things too. abuse can happen to anybody of any age. I think as we've written this, though, we've really concentrated a lot of our time and energy into making sure that we have safe churches for families to come into. It then goes into the 3 areas of prevention. It talks about the rules around interacting, monitoring, and then what do you do in responding and reporting. So when it comes to interacting, it lays out this is a long section, if you read this. It's one of the first links in the websites, in the resources that are available. It talks about everything from not having one-on-one communications between staff and youth and kids, to how do we bathroom kids then? All of those things about how do we interact to make sure that there is appropriate monitoring, appropriate interacting happening. And then it gets into monitoring and who needs to be where and when. How many people do we need to have? And again, this is a huge issue when it comes to big churches versus small churches. Churches that have a lot of kids, churches that have less kids. Some churches really struggle, but we feel like by making a policy where we say in any room there at least needs to be 2 trained, either adults or an adult and an older teen, which we lay out what they would need to go through in order to be able to be okay to play that role. That has to be there. The 2 people that are monitoring together shouldn't be married, shouldn't be from the same family. And a lot of people in smaller churches are like, this is really hard. And, that it would be easier if me and my husband can serve on the same Sunday. Yes, I see that, but we're not going to do that. We know from just years of the histories, I would say, of the failures of churches protecting people, that what has happened is if things can stay hidden within a family or hidden between 2 people who have a reason to protect each other, it's going to be less likely that the right information comes out. So we're just going to stop that by saying really easily, yep, a husband and wife, they just can't serve together. Or a father and his teenage daughter, we're not going to have them. There's just going to be somebody who needs to change in there for protection. So those are decisions that have been made. I think there's good reasons behind them, but if you want to ask me about the reasons, go ahead and we can talk them through. But that's where we've landed on those things. The key to, and I use this phrase all the time, and I want you to take this then into your homes, into your schools, and all the places you go. The key to prevention is that the actions between others are observable and interruptible. So there you can see with your eyes, and interruptible means you're close enough that you can even hear. So if something's going down or a conversation starts getting funky, you are close enough that you would be able to interrupt that. So those are the basics. When it comes to monitoring why we have people where and why we need so many people, and why we don't really want actually ever adult or a kid going away alone, or even 2 kids going away alone, it's because all actions in order for prevention and just safety is that they will be observable and interruptible. And so that means it's not going behind a closed door. It's not going into a place other people aren't. And then we'll start talking about this, what does this mean for our homes? What does this mean for life groups? What does this mean for when we just have friends over? Because I think this is a very important piece to a lot of this. And then it has a place about actually how you're to respond and who you're to report to. The basic principle, because not all churches have staffs of Wellspring size, which I love about Wellspring, is you have to report it to your rector, and the rector has to report things on to the bishop. That's the very basic line. Many churches, though, have other people there's other pastors, and so there are churches that have come up with other ways, as long as overall the things are getting reported to the head pastor and then on to the bishop, then you've fulfilled your duties. How to respond, I want to take just a quick minute and think about this. Because it doesn't talk about this in the policy, and there's some things that I have definitely seen and learned in my time. So how many of you are mandatory reporters through your work? So quite a few of you. If you do receive a report or you see something with your eyes that you realize this is a form of child abuse that is occurring, that can quickly weigh very heavy. And the fear can come quick of, wait, what am I supposed to get from them in order to make this report? So I want to make it, this is my very pint-sized version for all of you, because I don't want you to be afraid in those moments. Is, to me, the most important thing is you just listen to start. Whatever they're saying, if they're speaking to you, just listen. Try not to interrupt, and just let them go. If they have decided you're someone safe enough to report to, that is amazing. So just listen. Never ask why about anything. Take that word and throw it in the pit. Don't ask it. It doesn't matter right now in any way, and it'll only do more harm than good. What you need to know very basically, and a lot of this you can just get from listening, is the who. Who are they talking about? The what are they saying? Even if it's just their terms, get the what. And then you need to, if you can, and this can be a little bit hard, but it's just the when. Is this something that happened last night in their home, so you need to tell somebody because there's safety considerations about whether they can go there now? Or are they talking about something that happened on vacation with a cousin 2 years ago? You need to get the very basics of the who, the what, and the when. And that's about it. You don't need to know any of the why. You don't need to know, and you don't need to be an expert. And the last thing that I would encourage any of you who ever have things reported to you is you let them know that you can't hold this information, right? So what I encourage people to say to anyone, whether they're an adult or a kid, is, I can't do this alone. I'm gonna have to share this with at least one other safe person. You're just letting them know that I gotta bring other people in. Because I don't want them to, we see this in the sport context a lot. An athlete will report something and say, please don't tell anyone. I need my position on this team. I'm trying to make the next Olympics, or I'm trying to make the Junior Olympics, or I just want my spot on the team. And we have to make sure people know that if it is our job to report, which that is our job within the church context, and those of you who are mandatory reporters outside that, let them know you're not going to do this alone and you're going to bring somebody else in, so that they are not blindsided and adding another layer of trauma, right? So let's just do that. So that's my short version on reporting and responding. The safe church policy isn't perfect, but it does get looked at often. There is a group of us that are on the committee. It's me and 2 of the chancellors. I love them. They're like grandpas of the church. And so there are times when they will ask such great questions, and they'll every once in a while be like, wait, why are we doing this again? Because we want safe churches, because we need safe families, and I want all of you to be safe adults in every area of your life, so people know they can come to you. When I think about what this can be, so if we look at the statistics of how many people get impacted, even just in their childhood, by some kind of sex abuse, whether by an adult or another child, we have those people then that are seeking out and in need of a place where they can heal. And if we have churches that are safe, and they can see that through the expectations that are set, and even just the monitoring we've put in place, it is going to be the balm of Gilead to them. It's going to be like God's gift to them, right? That they are then in a church that there can be healing. So that's my goal. That's like the seeds I'm planting everywhere I go of let's be safe churches, because there are many adults who need the healing that only God can give because of things that happen when they're young. And every once in a while, I've had people come to me and say, wait, again? I just don't think we need a safe church policy. Our churches don't need it. We're not the kind of churches that need it. I've had people tell me that. People that I love and that are in leadership of churches say, nope, that's not our kind of churches. Actually, the people that get attracted to, our type of churches, we don't need to worry about these issues. I kindly and carefully remind them that that's just not true, and that there have been significant failures within the church for so long that not only do we need healing, but also there are things that are going to happen every day because of sin. It just will. And I would say in my experience, churches don't create predators, schools don't create predators, elite sports don't create predators. Predators go where? This is like my mini lesson on this. Predators go where they can gain authority, not be questioned, and become physically intimate in a hidden way. Whether that's just church, school, or sports, right? They get to a position where they have authority or just goodwill, friendship. They have made their way in. They're no longer questioned in other ways. And then there's some way to do something in a hidden place. And I think that across the spectrum is what happens. And so we are saying as a church, we're going to shine a light into places so that those things can't happen. And I was on a walk last night with two women from your church. It would have been Kirsten and Kimberly. Do I have the names right? And they were just throwing questions at me. And we were talking about, they were saying, overall, how do we stop predators from coming to our church? And I would say, overall, what you do is every time you speak out loud that we are a church that is going to protect our children, we're a family that cares about these issues, we want other people around us who care about these issues, you are scaring away 98% of people. Like the statistics show that you, by just setting and saying those expectations out loud, why? Because that's not a place they're gonna wanna be. Because that's not a place where they realize I'm going to be able to get a place of authority and be able to do things hidden. So just saying those things out loud are so important. So that is what the church is doing, what we've asked all of our churches to do. And you all probably have done a lot of those trainings, had those background checks. Congratulations. And if you're parents, maybe you haven't had those, but that's why we want to do the second half of this whole training, which is about now what do we do with this information when it actually comes to our families. Okay, we're going to stop really quick right here. I'm going to have you turn to 2 or 3 people around you, just a very simple, who are the kids in your life, right? Why are you here? Where do you serve right now in this collective sort of responsibility? It could be a church one, could be family one. Where do you serve? And name one thing you hope to learn today. So we're going to take about 5 minutes. We're going to go fast with this one. Turn to 2 to 3 people around you and see how far you can get with that. Are you ready? Okay, go. 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to cut us. We want to keep going. But hopefully you've learned a little bit about the people around you. And now we're going to see if I'm going to cover any of the things you hope to learn today. And remember, put it in text if I missed it. So let's go in here. I firmly believe that safeguarding starts in the home. So I hope I don't say anything super controversial. God, just protect my words. So I really believe it starts in the home. And it is out from there that our children learn the words and the things they need to in order to start protecting themselves. And it's the people we bring into our homes and the sort of the foundation we set there that is very important to safeguarding and our children learning what they need to learn for the rest of their lives. So this could be your kids that are in your home, your grandkids, those who come into your home in other ways. This is where we're going to start. So, again, this line, observable and interruptible, I encourage the families around me to live by this, even when you're just bringing other kids into your home. And this can be a little daunting depending on your home setup. How do you do this? And I understand there are going to be times when you all have a lot of basements around here too. Like, I think this is a super impediment to this work. No, there's got to be times when the kids are at play, right? There has to be. That's part of their also, like, child development is play. That's yards. That's parks. That is basements. So this is not something that I want you to do out of fear, and I have to see my kid at every moment. But is there someone else who can see them? Can I at least put into this that they're going to come check in with me, that I can look out the window and see where they are, that I know that there are not places in the yard or a shed that they can get into and disappear in. It is really thinking and processing through. This is not a hard and fast rule. This is just something, a lens through which to look at the interactions. And we're going to get into this, but so our children are developing, right, in all of these different ways. And they're also developing sexually. So there are things that are just behavior that's going to happen out of curiosity. Well, let's just take the time to not make those opportunities super easy for those things to be hidden and to become something that actually is a pattern that actually is going to develop a problem. And we'll talk about that as we go. But this lens of observable and interruptible, we have a very large backyard. It is totally fenced, and there's windows and doors, big doors that go out in every way. There are kids that are playing in our backyard all the time, right? But I also know that when they're in our backyard, where they can get to is where I can see, right? They can't slide around and get hidden over here or slide around. If they're in the backyard where they have been told they can be, then I can see them. So there's freedom. And I want you to know that there's freedom, but this is a really good just principle to remember so that you're just not creating places where things can be hidden. I also want you to think about the screens and the internet access. What do your kids have access to? And I will tell a very personal story. So, we are a family that there are screens, but they're because something is on that we have said can be on, right? So yes, you can watch that show. And it's not from that show. You're going to go on down some path we're not sure of. We try to be very careful about that. We allow very limited internet access. There's not a whole lot of, I have an 11 and a 6-year-old. My 11-year-old now has a Chromebook through school. We'll talk about that later. But there's, the internet is a place where you can see things that you can never unsee, right? And you can go down every path you can imagine. So the idea, I just get knots in my stomach, the idea of kids walking around with this screen where they can go anywhere they want at any time with no boundaries around that. That is where I come from in this. But I want you to think about then, what is that access in your home? And now our 11-year-old, she's sneaky. So she really wanted some access that her other friends are having. And she found a Kindle that we use when we go on vacation that she doesn't usually have. She found it. We just were not we weren't wise enough. And she, so smart. This kid is so smart. She realized that she downloaded a new app to it Dad would see because it would show on his Amazon account. So she went through the apps on it, and he had Discord on it because Discord is what he uses for one of his book groups and how they communicate. She told her friend that she just really wanted to talk to. He had hours outside of school. She figured out Discord. She'd go on Discord and make a new thing without it, making any new notices because it was not a new app. And I found her at 11 o'clock at night talking. And I was like, I heard voices upstairs, and I was like, I thought I was the only one up. She was in her room, and she had that Kindle, and she found a way they can just actually call each other through it, and was talking to a friend at 11 o'clock at night. And we were stunned, because we were like, we thought we were smart. We weren't. We missed something, right? We missed the vacation Kindle. She figured out how an app wouldn't show up and notify Dad, and she's pushing the boundaries of, my friends are having all this unlimited access, I want it too. So we had to take some steps there, right? But oh man, I just went to do my hair and there went. Was she okay? Yes. Was she talking to someone she knew? Yes. Could she have talked to people she didn't know, totally random people on the internet through that? Yes. Could this have been terrible? Yes, but it wasn't. God in his mercy, right? But I want you to think about those access points in your home. And, we have some rules about when friends come, their phones go on the front table on their way in the house. And everyone's okay with it. Those friends want to come over. They're actually okay with not having their phone on them for those hours, because they're also 11 and 12-year-olds. There's so many other things they can do other than that phone. So I want you just to think about things. I'm going to put a lot of things out there. I'm not going to say rules hard and fast. These are the things that I am seeing where damage is being done, where we are seeing cases of asking for pictures, sextortion, all of these things among kids younger than you want to even think about, because they have access to a tool, and that is a tool they're not ready for. And that tool can go places they're not ready for. And they're going to misuse it just by using words they've heard others people say, right? Because they don't even know. They don't even have the vocabulary. A lot of them don't even have the development, to know what they're doing. So I am just putting that out there as you then go home and think about these things, right? Because this is a place where we see huge danger in our homes. And I know that there are a lot of families who, you're keeping a roof over your head. We're keeping food on the table. And there are times when it's just like, I need my kids to be busy with something. But we just need to be really intentional about what they're busy with, is what I would say there. Social media is another part of that. I would say push that off as long as possible. If you have let your 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds have it already, I think you might want to stop and really see how that's impacting them and see if that's what you really want. Because social media and what it is doing to our children, every parent I've talked to who's, 5-10 years ahead of me in this says push those off as long as possible. There are so many things that are infiltrating through there that are just not safe and kind and caring. And I don't know, being the example of Christ to our kids. But there's also, if any of you have kids who are in sports, it might be through Snapchat that your coach and your team members talk to each other. Or, I mean, there's so many ways that social media is being used for, I would say, somewhat legitimate means. If you can play a role in that, say no to Snapchat every time. Just every time. Because if you don't know what Snapchat is, it is messages that come through and then immediately erase. And so much harm and harassment and bullying and terrible things can be done because then it just goes away. And then it's hard to keep actually a record of it to hold anybody accountable. So that's my one tip. Throw Snapchat out. So these are things that I want you to think about. So how do you then start opening these conversations with your kids? I believe, again, this is the foundation in your home of their safety for the rest of their lives, is you and the conversations you're going to start with them. Bree and I were talking about this sometime in the spring, and she had heard on a podcast, it's like a faucet with these hard conversations with your kids about really important things where you start it with a drip, right? Wasn't that the concept? So think about the idea of consent. I have a 6-year-old boy who can run through a wall. The idea that you can say to him, I need my personal space, is very foreign to him. And me as his mom, I mean, he is just on me. He has knocked me over before. He's so excited. He runs like a linebacker and just, he is learning the very basics of no, of somebody gets their own space. Somebody can say, that was fun for a while, but now it's not fun anymore. We are just starting those, we talk about it all the time. The autonomy of, yep, this is my body and that's your body. Those are basic concepts of consent, of knowing boundaries that are so important for your child being empowered to be able to know, that's strange that someone's asking me to do something. That's strange that they want that access to me. But they're not going to know that unless they realize sort of who they are and what, everything that they can have. So I really want you to start opening this up. And it starts by listening to your kids and mini conversations, even when they're so young. Mini conversations about consent, I think, are like building blocks to so much good because it's going to teach them so much about they need to listen to others, what they can then say, and it's going to empower them in ways that we will see the benefit of. So start those conversations. Okay, I will say this very clearly. Talk about your kids' bodies with them and use correct terms. Why? Because if something is to happen, let's look at the negative side. If something is to happen to them, I want them to be able to tell me. And they'll only be able to tell me and only want to even talk about it or even feel like it's okay to talk about it if we talked about it already, right? And so there's so many easy ways to open that conversation and use real terms. It is embarrassing when your children go around using those real terms in the real world sometimes, but it's okay. Yes, my son has talked openly about someone's penis in the grocery store. He knows that word, okay? But I'm okay with that he knows that word. I want him to know that word. We can handle that embarrassment, and then we get to teach him other things about what we actually say out loud. How do we describe others in public? Like, those are really good lessons for them too. It's a separate lesson, but use the real terms. On the positive side, I am coming through, we're gonna walk our kids through puberty. They need to know about their bodies. They need to know these things. Now, for some of us, generationally, what I am saying right now is traumatic and horrible. Because we're like, wow, that never happened with me. Or in the way it tried to happen, someone tried to happen, say those things to me, I have never lived past. It's true, but I really believe from a prevention point of view and a safety of our children and our families in a church, that we're going to have to get over. We might have to do some work ourselves to be able to say these words out loud, to go say them in the mirror, because we need to say them with our kids. We need them comfortable to say them. This is going to open up for you conversations that are going to protect your family. And so I just encourage you with that. And then I will pray that the Holy Spirit gives you just the anointing to start these conversations with your family, no matter how young they are now. That you open that, you turn that faucet on with the drip, and then by the time they're high schoolers, it's gonna be full blast. Because there's gonna be real stuff going on that you wanna be able to talk to them about. So that is very important in the home. Let's see if I missed anything there. Okay. So it is very important that, and we're still talking about in the home, that you are aware of what is happening between kids in your home. And kids are curious, and kids are super impulsive. There was a great story told at dinner last night about a very impulsive 8-year-old, I remember. Kids are so impulsive. They will do things not because there's anything sexual behind it. They don't even have the brain for that yet. But they're curious about their bodies, and maybe they're even curious about what that happens in the other person's body. So there are things that are going to happen, and we don't have to freak out. It's a part of their development, but also it's just a clear line for us of, wow, I do probably need to make sure that when kids are in my house, they can't disappear alone together. Because that's when curiosity gets even more curious. So it is so important that you have those open conversations and that you are knowing what's going on between kids in your home. I will then say that, the other part of that, there was supposed to be one more. Let me see. Oh, that's why I did this. Okay, let's talk about child development for a minute. Really quick side note. So children develop in all these ways, right? That we are monitoring as parents in our own ways. Everything from their creativity to their physical growth, their communication and language skills, their literacy. We're worried about all these things. We're thinking about all these things. We're encouraging all these things. And a part of that growth is also their sexual growth, their development. Those things are happening. So in this area, there's a continuum. There's a sort of discussion of this idea that there's any of them. So let's take like communication, for example. You can talk about what are the common normative things at certain ages on communication skills. What are the less common? What are the things that are we're a little concerned here, a little, and then what are the things where we're like, wow, their communication skills are so low. They're in the uncommon. These are uncommon that they are this low, or this is this hard. This is problematic. We probably need to do something about that. This is sort of a way you can look at every type of child development. So I want to talk about sexual development really quick, just so you have some language for it, and I want to take some of the fear away. So if something is common in sexual development, well, let's look at this first. We'll look at this and we'll talk about it. So a really basic definition. Sexual development includes not only the physical changes that occur as children grow, but also the sexual knowledge and beliefs that they come to learn and the behavior they show. We teach our children so much, and we need to be teaching them this in this area too. And that starts in those open communications. So let's go back to the continuum and what can freak us out. So let's talk about kids. Say there are 2 kids in your home. Maybe one of them is yours and is another. Maybe it's 2 boys. We'll take that example. Common sexual development activities is where curiosity and just accessibility meet. It is the pulling down of pants and showing the penis. Oh, what does yours look like? Ooh, this is what mine looks like. Very curious, very just accessible. They did it while they were both heading down the hallway to the bathroom. It just happens. It's impulsive. It can be easily redirected. Hey, we don't do that. When we have friends over, we keep our pants on, right? Really simple stuff that redirects, right? It is so common. Now, I know, though, it can be very scary to hear. Say you didn't know that happened. And another mom calls you up, or another dad, and says, when my kid was at your house, your kid pulled down his pants. and showed him his penis. And you could get absolutely freaked out by that, right? And then you're like, my son's 7. That sounds like a 7-year-old. And I want you to be able to do that. Now, do not, push that other parent back. I can't believe you said that. There's so many things you don't do. And I also don't say, well, laugh it off and say, I'm not going to do anything about this. Take it seriously, but also with a little levity and knowing super common behavior. Very normal in development. If it is something you can redirect easily, it's something that was clearly done on impulse, and it's something that's not been a pattern, you are in green. You are in go. You are in redirect that kid, say to that parent, thank you. We will deal with that. Ask, was there any impact? Is there anything we need to do? And find out. And low impact things that are done just impulsively like that, they are 100% in common development sexually of kids. Okay, that is very normal. Now, let's take it a little step further. And maybe it's an 8 or a 9-year-old, same conduct. They've been talked to before about this. They now think it's funny, or it might not even funny, but they now have done it to multiple children who have been in the home. You're heading into definitely a cautionary. That's less common. Once it becomes a pattern in any way, and it's more impactful, you as a parent, I ask you to then get that, start taking this not only just seriously, even from the beginning you should have, but might be when you want some outside help. Because you don't want patterns to develop, okay? And then there are absolutely what's called problematic sexual behavior. It's a whole area you can go into in life. A bit dark of one, but it's out there, where you're really seeing kids, even at a pretty young age, already doing predatory pattern behavior. That's harder to redirect. Those are kids that you're going to see more in the juvenile justice system usually, because it's continued on until they're old enough to actually, be charged with a crime. But here is God's grace to all of us. Children, they have found, even among what they would call child sexual abusers, those who have done things to others, acts of violence and harm in that area, kids are resilient. They can be redirected. The link between a child sexual abuser being an adult sexual abuser is actually very little. It's a totally different thing. It's a development thing that they're coming through. It's something they can learn and be taught, and there can be healing. It's very different than what we see in adult sexual abusers that many times can never be redirected. But we don't want them on that path. You want to make sure that there is help that is given. So, what does this relate to our homes? I want you to know and think about and embrace the common sexual development of your children. Be along for the ride, be open for the conversations, and be ready to redirect in loving, joyful ways that doesn't then make them freak out, right? Just know that that's part of it. And even if you're getting into cautionary, less common, it's something you guys are really dealing with, again, this is part of their growth. And so I don't want you to approach this with fear, but know that these things can happen, but there are a lot of resources available. Okay, that was a very in-depth area we went into. We're going to move on to other things. If you have questions about that, please put them in the text. But I wanted to make sure we spent some time there. So overall, we've talked about the lens through which things in your home, observable and interruptible, what's coming in, social media all the way through, then you and open conversations, conduct with other minors. I want to spend 2 minutes on conduct between adults and minors. The hardest interviews I have ever done are with parents who have realized they've brought the predators into their home. So I remember sitting across from a woman who realized that a longtime family friend was her child's abuser. Someone who went back to college age with her and her husband, has been in their home holidays, has all, they welcomed them in as an uncle to those kids. They didn't worry about where he was in the house compared to where their kid was. In many ways for good reason. This is someone they knew well. Why would you need to think about that? And it wasn't until much later, and they were sorting through why didn't we see the signs? Why didn't we understand this? And then finally it being presented to them by their daughter. And guess what their first reaction was? Absolute disbelief. There's no way that this person did this. And so they then having to work through shame and the guilt and all of the things of realizing they let that person in. Some of these things, again, we are not promised absolute safety. I think some of the hardest stories of sexual abuse are between family members. There are some things that I think can just surprise us and hurt us so deep because we just didn't see it coming. And I don't know how to stop 100% of that. But I think there are ways that you can, through definitely open conversations with your kids and making sure you're checking in and thinking about what you can see and not see, that you can actually play a huge role in stopping those things from happening. Okay, we're gonna stop, and I want you to think practically about this, okay? So I'm gonna have you go back to those groups really quickly. I want you to just think about this idea of observable and interruptible in your home. Does it work at all? What do you need to change in order to make this work? And then maybe where do you start opening up conversations at home? And I also want you to just think about, and maybe you won't even get there, is who are you doing this work with? I don't want you to do this alone. Is it you and your husband? Is it you and some other moms that are going to talk about this? Is this something your life group could think about? I want you to think about who your people are that you're going to do this with, because we are not doing this alone. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. It's probably not going to be enough, but it's the time we're going to have for now. Just go back to those groups and see how far you can get with thinking through the practicalities of your home and the conversations that need to be started. At least those two things. Ready? Go. Okay, I know you didn't get enough time. So you're going to have to restart that conversation tomorrow after church or something. I know I didn't give you enough time, but it's just a taste of it. Okay, we are going to, I hope that just helped you start thinking practically, and that these are conversations that are going to go on from here. You are going to join others in this. Maybe it is you and your spouse thinking some things about your home, you and others around you. Go and have fun with this. Okay, we're going to talk about the last thing, which is safeguarding continues outside the home. So this is really hard because there is a natural instinct to build the highest walls, make the safest home, don't allow anyone in, and don't let your kids go outside, right? But then there's this little thing called the Great Commission that tells us where to go. We are to be living out. We are to be living outside. Yes, inviting people in is a part of that. Hospitality and all of that, but we're also supposed to be going out. And I'm not making a you shouldn't be homeschooling comment, okay? Don't hear what I'm not saying, okay? I'm just saying that we know with our families that we are to be salt and light in this world, and that means we can't just build a high tower and protect our kids about it. Because I have seen the other side of this, my friends. I was a university administrator who had to do the sexual misconduct investigations, and guess when most sexual assaults happen on a college campus? The first 3 months of someone's time on a campus. Why? Because everything's new, everything's getting thrown at them, all access to things they've never had before. And I could pick out the kids who were raised in homes where they were not prepared to be anywhere else in the world but in that home. And it was really hard to watch because it was oh man, your parents really thought they were doing such great work with you, and then you got to college campus and you didn't even know how to think through what was being presented to you and how you should respond to it. So that is my great warning to you. Let us raise children who are safe and protected, but also they are ready to analyze for themselves and think through and make decisions. And I don't think the highest walls is the way we do that. That's my position. You could differ, but that's where I'm coming from in this prevention work. Yes, so sheltered children does not automatically mean safe and healthy adults. And I've seen that in different ways. So I am, again, going to throw out some things out here, and I'm going to let you think about them as your head goes, and then I'm going to try to give you some resources of things to do. So, again, I think observable and interruptible is a very important prevention thing that actually works in all of these other settings. But you might not be the one that's with your child in those settings. So what this takes is you knowing then what is going to happen where your children are at. Because we as parents actually need time to sleep. We need time to go on, dates. We need to go to work. We have other things where we have to put our attention, correct? So we have to rely on others. That is one of the hardest things about being human, is we have to rely on others. So I want you to think, and we're just going to start down this thinking process of, many kids are going to school. Many kids are going to sports. Many kids then are going to camps, after school programs. I used camps in all those ways. These are good things. None of them in and of themselves are bad things, right? But what you need to, as a parent, think through and know, and maybe research, and maybe it takes some phone calls, is you need to know what expectations are being set there. What is the reporting and response policy that they have? How are they monitoring your kids? Because the same principles are at play of you don't want things to be hidden, you don't want your child and an adult to be alone, and you don't even want your child and another child to be allowed to be alone. So how is that actually working out? So this is on us as parents. Again, I don't want us to be afraid. I don't want us to hide our kids in the closet because of this, but I also want us to go out and do the work that we need to do to make sure. So, these are some things that you could, questions you could ask yourself before dropping your kid off at one of these schools, camps, activities. Very just thinking through. Is it a place where they're screening and background checking their employees? That seems, again, like a really low bar, but there's some funky places you can send your kids And are they doing those things? What is the supervision like when your kid is there? What is the monitoring like? Do they have a reporting structure and it is one you can access? You know who to report if your kid tells you something, okay? How are the expectations communicated to those kids? So think about a camp. It's a soccer camp. Is there someone who gets up in front of those kids in the first 15 minutes and at least says, these are the things we're gonna do and not do while we're at this camp? Is that happening? That it might not be very clear in the website. You might need to talk to whoever the program director is. I don't know. There's many things you might need to do, but I really think it's important for you to know as parents. And then if you are sending your kids somewhere overnight, I have done it. I have even done it. My child has gone to away camp for 6 nights in a row. And I wanna know about the sleeping arrangements. I want to know how that's being monitored, and then I want to know who the 24/7 contact is. I want to make sure my child knows who she could contact at any hour and who I could contact at any hour if something's going on. So there's some extra things in overnight. These are very basic, like what do you know and what are they doing when you are sending your kids out from the home where you should be sending them. You actually do need to do other things in your life, but you want to make sure they're being safe. So that is my sort of my basic rundown there. Other homes. So I've sort of covered what I would want to know about schools, camps, and those other things. So your 10-year-old comes to you and says, I really want to do a sleepover with Katie. You don't know Katie or her family. I would just say the big old fat no. I'm just gonna be real honest. I'm not afraid of the no, and I just say we're not like every family. I mean, when my daughter's like, but everybody else, yep, we're not that family. But there are homes that my child has slept over at, right? They are, for us, it's been my best friend from college and I live in the same town. Our kids are like cousins to each other. I know when my kids, though, go there, her auntie and uncle are going to parent them. I know we have all similar ideas of what is safe. My kids can go there and sleep any night they want there, right? That is a relationship that's been formed over many years. We've gone through lots together. There's another family in the church. Our kids are really close friends. We have parented, we've been on church leadership together. Their kids have been at ours when they went to Italy. We have found that that's a safe place. There's not a lot beyond that where my kids have gone. But I have let my kids go for at least an afternoon. Right? But how? What did I do in order to do that? Okay, I'm going to be very, very open with you. I'm not supposed to use the word vulnerable. I'm going to be very open with you. This is the process I go through. It might not be yours. But I need to know what adults are going to be present in that home while my child is there. I need to know what they do about screens and internet access. And I make it very clear that our kids don't just go on the internet. And I want to know the general plan. Are you guys staying here at the house? Are you going to the park? I just want to know the general plan. Part of it is letting my kiddo know, like, hey, this is what's going to happen, but also so I can think through maybe other questions I want to ask. Or maybe if I decide I'm going to actually join them. Okay, I want to know general plans. I ask about weapons. I ask if you have weapons and are they locked? And if someone is not willing to answer that question, great. We're not going over. Because most people, no matter what their take on weapons is, they're at least going to be willing to answer that question, right? And, oh, yes, they're safe, they're locked, they're whatever. Okay, great. Then we can jive here. But if they're not willing to answer our question, that's outside of sexual abuse. That's just basic safety. I'm just not going to let them go. And then making sure that I have a way to communicate with them, mobile number, right? It might be a mom from a school that we've never swapped mobile numbers before. I'm going to want to know that before. I have let my daughter go. When these things, has she lost friends? Probably. Am I okay with that? Totally. I think she's not going to be lifelong harmed because one girl and her family got offended by my questions. I'm gonna hope that. I'm gonna pray that. And in the long run, I don't think this is overprotective. I want my daughter to go out. I want her to have those friendships, and I also just want to be smart about it. So that's what I do. I want to just put that out there as things that are preventative, that I think are a part of this overall just safety that we can do. Okay, I get a lot of questions about strangers. And I think about churches where there might even be people who mill around here, or maybe even sleep on your steps. I don't know. Our church, we have people many nights that are sleeping on our steps of our church, even when we go up get there on Sunday. I don't want my kids to be afraid of everyone because there's someone they don't know. There's actually a lot of people they don't know who are kind, helpful adults, right? But I want them to think about and be ready to tell me if someone is showing strange behavior. This is someone they might know. They might know. It might be somebody who's an uncle to them that all of a sudden does something strange and asks something strange. That's not a stranger to them. I don't want them to think that every stranger is bad, but everyone they know really well is great, and that they should do anything they say, right? So I draw this line between stranger and strange behavior. It's something to think about. It's just a principle we've used that I think has helped our kids not be afraid of people because they don't know them, but at the same time be wary, be aware, and talk to us about it. So I'm putting that out there too as a church that's in a more urban area. I'm guessing there's people that wonder. I don't want you to be your kids to be afraid of people, but I do want them to be on the lookout, and you have that open conversation with them. So that was a nugget. That was free of charge right there, that one. Okay, we were going to move to another breakout, but I am going to give this to you as homework instead. Okay, so this is your homework. What do you know about the policy and reporting processes of your current school's sports programs and activities that your kids are going to? And then I want you to talk to another person that you're trying to do this work with, whether that is your spouse or another family that you're close with. And I want you to think through as you leave here, what's the hardest part of building safety outside the home? And start thinking through how you're going to do that. What are some things you need to instill that you haven't before? Okay, that's homework. Because this is a work that isn't just today. This is just getting you thinking. Okay, I'm going to very quickly do two things. There is a resource, that website, if you go to the QR code, it brings up a place where you can do questions, and then a whole bunch of resources you can get linked to. I want to explain what a few of those are, why I think they're important, and why I threw them on that list, okay? So, the first one is like a 12-part training on sexual development and behavior. You all should do it. It was made for teachers, but it's great for parents. Have fun with it. It's like slides, you go through it. It's a training. It's just going to help you in that area if this is something that you're worried about and wanting to know more about. NetSmartsKids.org was actually created by it's NCMEC, National something for Missing Children. I cannot remember what it's called. It is a national organization that works in that area. They have created age-specific, like, internet safety trainings. Ones you can have your elementary students do, or kids do, one you can have your high schoolers do, that will train them on safety on the internet. I think they're actually a pretty good resource for parents, if that's not something you've done before. The Safe Sport Summer Safety Checklist, it's just questions. It's actually a lot of those same questions that I talked about you'd go through with asking your school or your program. They had put out a resource a couple summers ago that's very similar. It's a one that you can just pull up and remember, I'm going to ask these questions before I drop my kids off here, or figure this out the week before. I know it's where I work, so this is a little weird, but I want you to have these resources. Safe Sport creates so many abuse prevention resources, and if you have kids in sports, I think these are great. They are free. There's multiple trainings that you have parents can do, and you can even have your older youth do, so that they can be good bystander. They can know how to be a bystander and how to report. They can know how to be a good friend. They can know what they're looking for in coaches and things like that. I wanted to make sure you had those. And then if you have someone that maybe it's a grandparent in your life or someone else that you want to just start bringing very carefully into this world of, we're going to do this work together. RAIN puts out a very, very basic prevention-like list of these are the things we're gonna do in this area. And so it's a really simple just website you can go to that you could even share with friends. So those are some resources, and I wanted to make sure we talk through them really quick. And this is my final takeaways before we get to questions. Be in prayer. Pray for your families and the families around you of how you're supposed to do these things. Be involved. Involved parents are a key, involved grandparents, and if you need help in that, involved communities. Be aware. Know what's coming into your home. Know what your kids are walking into. Be open with each other and with your kids, and be persistent. This is not one and done. You are going to be talking to your kids as they're 5, and then again when they're 7, and then the conversations are going to change, but be persistent. I think God is going to do a work to protect our families in those ways. So, I think there's questions that we're going to get to. Let's do it. Put that up there. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I'm going to move my hair.
Hope, I just wanted to say thank you so much
You're welcome.
for being here. Thank you. These are really hard things, but you're breaking it down and making it a little bit more bite-sized
Awesome.
for each of us.
Awesome.
Got a couple great questions here.
Okay, go for it.
And wanted to know if you have an opinion about...
I always have an opinion. Yes.
Could you share with
Yeah.
us at what age to start talking to our kids about sex and safety? And is it different for boys and girls?
Yeah, so I am a firm believer that we can start talking about safety things from the very beginning. And I would say that's why talking about real body parts and talking about early things of consent are actually the building blocks for talking about sex with our kids as they get older. So I don't think there's a minimum age. You're actually starting with very bite-sized things about themselves and about how they should be relating to others while they're learning words, like from the very youngest. Now, I think behind that was actually but what about like the sex talk and like things that are, I think it depends on the kid. I think, in my opinion, we have spent a lot of times preparing girls for things and left out a lot of preparing boys too. So please don't concentrate your energy on the girls. Yes, they are the ones that are going to get their period. And they are the ones that could get pregnant. And they're all these things that are real. But your males play a role in that. And I think we have an amazing ability as the church. We have an opportunity in front of us to raise young men who are just as knowledgeable about the role they play in that and understand consent and really the beliefs. I think sexual development isn't just teaching your kid about what their body's going to do. It's teaching them what we believe about that body and what we believe about sex and the beauty and the honor and just the blessing these bodies are. And I think that is a really important part. And I say it starts at the very beginning. So I think it's an ongoing conversation.
Absolutely. I have a saying, I practice my resting mom face, because if we have these hard conversations, we have to really be ready for anything, and you have to really practice not
being surprised.
Yes, so practice now.
That's a good one. I like it.
It's coming. I think you were going to share about Chromebooks.
Oh,
do you mind
sure.
circling back on that?
Yeah. So I don't know what kind of school your children go to, but mine goes to one where they are given in 6th grade a Chromebook. And it is through that Chromebook that they do a majority of their assignments. There is a lot of expectation about their ability to already start putting presentations together and early coding and all of these things. And that Chromebook is an amazing tool, right? It goes home with them every night. The schools are crazy, right? So this is what the principal said, and I almost stood up and shouted amen. So this is what the principal of our daughter's school said during orientation just a couple weeks ago. He said that Chromebook is a great tool, but it can access the internet. And your child should never be accessing the internet without you present in the room. And he said that to a room full of families. That's a hard teaching. That was a hard word that he just gave there, but I think he's right. He's talking to 6th grade parents and families. My 6th grader does not have the skills yet to know where to go and not go. I know that about her because I love her and I care for her, right? So I think we need to be very careful. I think those middle school years are really a time of exposure to a lot of things they do not need to be exposed to. So I think there's a lot of ways you can go with that. Right now, our Chromebook, it comes home and it goes to us. Unless there's a specific assignment. She doesn't get to just use it during the night because it's a school supply. It's a school thing. It stays in her backpack that goes in the school closet, or it comes to us if it needs to get charged. She doesn't just get to use it. So that's the way we're handling it. Do I want my child's school to have my daughter prepared for the world that we are living in and be able to use these tools? Yes. But I think we just need to have wisdom around them.
Yep, sounds good. So, do you have any resources and books for talking with toddlers about body safety and consent?
So there's a lot of books out there. I am not going to put one over another. I think, did you add some books even to our resource list?
Yeah, I added Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, which is a really good children's book for kids if they come into any form of pornography, like what to do and how to react to that. That's a good one. And then I have some children's books in my office that talk a lot about God's design of their bodies and the goodness in it, using a lot of proper terms.
Just for our recording,
Yeah.
Bree's got resources to share, and Good Pictures, Bad Pictures is on the list.
Yeah, and then there are other books. Yeah, if you could add those other books even just to the resource list, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Totally practical. What age should siblings and friends not bathe together?
Oh,
It's a hard one.
again, I'm not sure if there's an exact line, but I think that once your kids, once they know body parts and are getting really curious about the other body parts, we're sort of done with bathing together. I think. And so I think for a lot of kids, that is 4, 5, 6, right? Some it might be younger.
Yep. I've even put a bathing suit on and been like, you know what? Bath time is fun.
100%, I agree with the bathing suit thing. Because let them have fun, but yeah. Once there's curiosity and wanting to figure that out in others, I think because we want our kids to know that their body is their body. So we're trying to instill that even from pretty young.
Yep. In this continually growing secular world and ideology that opposes Christian values, how do you suggest we interact with other parents and schools, organizations regarding gender, ideology, and some other things that maybe we consider abuses?
Yeah. We're just not staying light here, are we? We just went for it. Okay, I'm again open, honest, vulnerable. My children are taught to call people by their name. And if that's the name they want to go by, we're going to use it. We're going to call them by their name. My daughter has gone through a lot in her elementary school of kids wanting to present many different ways. And we've had a lot of talks about, our bodies, the way we have been made, contentment, also people's wanting to express themselves in so many different ways. And she's like, but I don't want to make mistakes. She's 11, and she's already saying, I don't want to make mistakes with other people. So we've really talked about and really concentrate, and I know a lot of teachers that have really had a hard time in this area too. We're going to use names. We are going to respect people. We are going to be kind. And we're going to use the name they're asking to use. And we're not going to be afraid of others. We also know that they're trying to express themselves, is the way my daughter sees it with her friends. They're still figuring out a way to do that. But we also say the line a lot, which is our family might be different than other families. And talking about the beliefs we have about how God has created us. And I'm watching her little brain just try to filter that and try to figure out how to make that work. She goes to a public school, right? And she's trying to figure that out. But I also want my daughter to be kind. And she is learning to be a real friend to people who feel like they're really on the outside. And they're expressing a lot of that in some of these ways. So I don't think that really answered the question, but that's sort of how we're handling it in our family.
Yep. Can you give us some insights between balancing play-based childhood, Jonathan Haidt, and all of that, with this observable and interruptible?
Yeah.
Just unpack it a little more for us.
It feels like they're in super tension, doesn't it? Yeah. I think the tension will be there because it's that child development that needs to happen needs to be in free play, right? But we can create safe spaces for them to do that free play. I think, to me, that's the only way I can bring that tension together is, yes, I actually don't want to know where my child is for the next 2 hours in the backyard, but I actually do want to know he's in the backyard and that he's somewhere that it's safe, right? There is that major tension. Now, my child also walked to a park a mile away. That is a totally another issue that we had to deal with because he's so confident in himself that he walks there. We want confident children, just not too confident. But yes, so there is this tension, and I don't know how to make that tension go away because total free play, where they can just be anywhere, does that really mean with anyone though? No, right? So as long as that we are able to, as parents, think through who are they with, and I think there's real safe ways to build real freedom and fun. But I think maybe it's us being even more intentional about where that's going to be. And I think there is a way to bring those tensions together.
Yes, it's hard, but
Yeah.
you mentioned being persistent.
Yeah.
It's just, we're opening the spigot here.
Yes.
You don't have to have it all figured out in this
No,
moment.
we don't.
It's overwhelming. The idea of putting the phones at the front door, do you ever come in contact with families where that is their access to their child, so they see that as a problem to not have access to them?
We haven't run into that problem yet because those parents know that while their kids are in my home, they can contact me. I feel about the same way about the schools. So in Oregon, they've outlawed cell phones in all the schools, legislated it. I know, it's so amazing. So guess what parents were saying? Oh, but I can't get a hold of my kid. And they're like, well, how have you ever gotten a hold of your kid? You call the office and we get to them. And parents looked like it was a whole new world. And it was like, this is very obvious. So I would say the same thing. We have not run into a problem at all with this. The kids who are coming in our door that have those phones and put them down, their parents know they can contact us and we will get them what they need. So we haven't seen that problem, but that takes a little step of communication, right? Because my daughter has a friend who is a couple of years older than her in the church. That girl has a phone already. We know she has a phone, but her mom knows that it sits on our front table when she comes to our house. And her mom is absolutely okay with that.
What do you look for in babysitters? Does it change if those people are family members?
I mean, to be honest, I'm looking for someone who is in walking distance of my home. No.
True.
Yeah, for us, babysitters, that has been a very church connection thing. It's older teens. We even had a grad student for a while. That was my favorite babysitter. She had a car. She was very responsible. We have looked for that church connection, knowing their family already. And then, I have never had my babysitters, I've never had them go and pay the money to get them background checked. I have not gone through that because it's been somebody I know. And I'm pretty sure they don't, as a 16-year-old, have a criminal history yet. I would know that from their parents. But I've just gone through the knowing. I think that can be a lot harder. There are many services you can go now through to get babysitters who have been background checked and have been screened. We have found we would rather the church connection and knowing their background that way and that the expectations are set that way. That has worked for our family. But that doesn't work. We don't all live places where that's easy. So that is how we've worked that out.
Yep, and I think Bree and I would be glad to give you resources from our church as well. What are your thoughts on nanny cams, and how long do we keep those up? I personally want to keep them up forever, but.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. So I have adopted children. I am friends with a lot of people who have adopted kids. We also have a lot of kids in our church, and every church is probably similar, where there's, some behavioral stuff, some ADHD, some, other fun, spicy things going on. And as parents, a lot of us have a lot of reason why we want to know sort of what's going on and where, and if somebody else is in the house. But then some people are married to my husband who does not want a camera anywhere. He believes the cameras are spying on us and are listening to us. His favorite movie is RoboCop. So I think there is a place for them, and some families that's going to be a real factor for them of something they're going to do for their own, it feels a lot safer. I think there's other families that are going to say, no, we're not going to do that technology in our home. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And I don't think how long they're there. Where are these? I have a friend, they have to have a camera in their son's room because of concerns of self-harm and things he might do, right? That's a very different issue than having a camera in your main living spaces so you can sort of see what the babysitter and the kids are doing. I think there's a lot of reasons why that technology is really important, and there's a lot of safety. And then I think there's a lot of weird, I get to have to deal with so many cases of people misusing cameras and filming things they shouldn't film. So we could have a long discussion here. I think there is a place for them. I think there's also reasons why they can be harmful and damaging.
Yep, it's a complex world.
Yeah.
This person wrote in, I love the concept of collective responsibility and how it's being addressed in the high-stakes territory of children's sexual safety. Does the DRM and or other organizations inside or outside the church communicate clearly the importance of collective responsibility in other areas, such as racism, mental health, etc.?
No. I think sorry.
It's clear.
I think that is a full sentence, full stop. No, we are playing catch up in an area that all of a sudden got brought very much to light, and culturally all of a sudden there was a realization of a huge problem. That is, the church has been, it is sad how we end up reactionary in many ways, right? And if we have all lived through the last 5 years, we'll start with the racism part of it. No, I do not believe the church has taken on the issue of racism in the way that it should have, and it still needs to. I think there is still a reckoning coming in that area. I'm just going to be very honest where I am with that. Mental health, physical, emotional abuse. There are so many things that have been part of the history of church families for a very long time that are all persistent and pervasive and damaging. The goal of many of the things we've talked about when we've talked about the safe church policy is that the goal is that it will also impact emotional and physical abuse, for sure. if you put these things in place. And so we've felt good about, we've had that discussion. But I don't think America and the American church has yet come to address and really get to the bottom of the history of, the impact of slavery and what that has caused in the churches and where we are now with race.
Yep, thank you. Do you have stories where other churches or communities have implemented these kinds of safety protocols, asking about weapons and internet access among more than 2 families successfully?
So, I mean, my ideas here about what those questions I would ask before going into another home aren't like a church implementation plan, right? They're not part of the safe church policy. I am speaking as someone who's worked in the areas of sexual misconduct and prevention. And for my family, those things are important to me. Are more than 2 families in my church using similar questions? Yes, because we've had a lot of discussions about it. But it's not an implementation plan that is required by the DRM. I'm speaking to you as a parent and a professional in this area of things I think you should be thinking about with your kids and your families. Is there another direction I should have gone with that question? Does someone have a follow-up question to that? Because I did not hit that one correctly?
Is that even possible? I think
To what?
having a church-wide guidelines, not like requirements, or does this really belong with the parents?
I think man, you're really getting deep here. I think parenting is one of those areas where the church has given people a lot of freedom, right, to make decisions. But maybe we actually haven't discipled parents very well. If we have allowed them to parent in ways that we know are going to be harmful to their kids. So if I was a benevolent dictator of the church, would I want all families to do these things? Yes. But I know that I actually don't want a dictator, and that I want we do serve a God who lets us make some really, I almost swore, really bad decisions. And I think this is an area of discipleship. There's a question back there. How'd we do on those ones? Can we take that one?
Yep, go ahead, Rebecca.
For those of us parents who are here, and our kids are inviting our kids to each other's houses, let's make those questions not weird. I'm going to ask you about this. I'm just going to practice with you. From one year to another, before my daughter comes over and hangs out. Let's practice this so it doesn't feel as weird when we're asking people outside of this
Yeah.
group,
Yeah. Yeah.
And assumptions that the church community is safe is where you have problems.
Correct. Yeah. We can't actually assume, because this is, I said this, I think, earlier, churches and places where they attract people who actually want to be predators, because they know they can sort of, through relationship and all of that, gain acceptance and gain some kind of authority and trust, actually pretty quickly, because we want to trust people. And so yes, don't assume. But also, can we make it not weird? Maybe. I think we can. Because things get less weird the more we do them.
Exactly. Let's demystify it. And I love the idea of practicing the questions, because then it's just, the more we do it, the more comfortable it is. Okay, how in a larger church setting, how do we balance being compassionate, loving, and trusting, but still be alert for potential warning signs, both with people you know well and with new people who may be around children?
Yeah, I don't think it's just a big church issue. I think it's an all church issue. It's any community where we are welcoming people in. We want them to come in. I think some of us have, and it's a gift, an intrinsic wariness of others. And I think that that's a good thing. I think some of us have an intrinsic welcoming, hospitality, I will be your next best friend gift, also needed in the church, right? So, but these gifts have to be used, and that's why it is a community responsibility. Because the person who's wary needs to know that they can probably announce their wariness to maybe a church staff member or someone who's safe and another mature person, not gossiping, just like, hey, I am getting this. There's discernment. The Holy Spirit tells us things. There are people who that's their gift. They might have the resting mom face at times. They have the gift of like, I'm not sure. We need to not quell those people, right? We need to let them know, use your gifts. Also be hospitable and kind, and we want those people, but then there needs to be in the community together a place where we know we can go to somebody in the church and say, I have this concern. That's why we have in the policy, you can't actually volunteer until you've been in the church 6 months, right? In a big church, 6 months maybe isn't long enough because maybe there isn't anyone who's had time to have that wary, red flaggy feeling, and everyone's still on the yay, welcome, come in and get coffee. Right? But that was what we landed on because we are balancing a lot of churches with a lot of different sizes. So I think the principles are utilize your gifts, your eyes open. Do not feel like my sense of sort of the tingle feeling I'm getting, I need to push it down because that's not like what God wants us to do. God has given you those skills for a reason. We need to then just use them together in a safe way.
Yep.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I think boundaries are really important. So when you have clear boundaries established, and the wary person's like, hey, wait, there was this boundary, and they're kind of pushing against it, predators are testing boundaries.
Totally.
And so having clearly stated boundaries and people who are aware of them to say like, hey, I don't think we're supposed to go in the bathroom with a like just calling that out is kind of one, scaring off the predator.
They're going to walk away.
But then two, it's also like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and say something that I saw because usually there's a pattern of behavior.
And somebody else might have seen it and nobody else, but they hadn't said it and put it together yet.
I think for everyone to have a clear understanding of what boundaries are.
Yeah.
And then anything that seems to be testing that boundary, like, hey, maybe they just didn't know, like give them the benefit of the doubt, but also make it known that it's not okay and
Yeah.
document it so that there's more of an awareness of like, and maybe that's more for the staff to hold the awareness, but everyone in terms of like the pattern, but it's the responsibility of the people to be aware of the boundaries and to say like, hey, that seems like a boundary violation. Can you help me?
Yeah. It's the staff's responsibility to set the expectations with the volunteers. If you see something outside of the boundaries, tell me, I'm here, right? Set that expectation. And guess what? The predator knowing that all the other volunteers are actually going to talk about it is going to make them walk away. Because you then have set not only a boundary, but an expectation of how we're going to report about those boundaries. And that's going to be huge in prevention.
So I worked at a school, and every single year the boundary was adults cannot use the children's bath. And every single year, adults use the children's bath, despite the boundary being set and reset and reset and reset. And I think it'd be interesting with like the updates to the building, like maybe there can even be like a sign posted on the children's bathroom or whatever the rules are. To be like put outside that space so that if I see like an adult going in, I know what Wellspring's boundary is, even if I don't volunteer to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Or like with the updates to the building, maybe those can be more clearly presented.
yeah. And we need to have a bravery as a member of the community to look at somebody and say, I think you just crossed a boundary, and actually say that to their face.
And that's why maybe posting them like an adult should not be in the bath. I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that might help.
Clear expectations and clear boundaries communicated in however they are is always a deterrent to predators. Always. a high deterrent. So the communication, whether that's posting or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, we have two more that I really want to get through, and we're out of time.
Okay.
But what do you do in the case where your child is hanging out and playing with a child that you already know has some sexual abuse history?
Like them sexual abuse to others, or they have a history of being impacted by sexual abuse, or does that even really matter in this scenario? Okay. So if I believe that children can be redirected and can be healed and need actually safe places in order to be healed in, I want them to have that. And if that's with my kid in a safe area where you can observe and interrupt if needed, I think that there can be safety there. I think that can be definitely created. I do not want us to write off kids, right? That is not the gospel. I don't want us to write off adults. Now that is a whole, I was expecting some questions about people on the sexual registry, but I didn't get it, and that's okay. Because there is a whole thing about what do we do about adults that walk in the room that we know that they have a history of. But when it comes to kids, I want us to be as hospitable and caring and kind as we can with very clear boundaries.
Yep. We touched on the spouses not serving together.
Oh, yeah.
And I know in our context, we have some moms and daughters who serve together. And I want to assure you that Bree and I are going to be following up on that. Bree's going to be following up on that. And this is just a good time to be like, oh, let's take a closer look at some of the things that we've been doing. So we heard your questions, and we're going to be following up.
Okay.
I'm going to close us in prayer.
Okay.
And I just want to
You're
also
doing really good.
invite, this is a start of hard and incredible conversations. And I want to assure you that I'm ready to have hard and honest conversations. And I know Bree is, and I know the rest of our staff here at Wellspring also really support that. Because again, if we bring these topics into the light, the Lord is there, and He wants to bring safety and protection and healing to our spaces. So,
And I'm going to stick around for a little while until Bree takes me somewhere later. So if you
Excellent.
have things that you want to talk about, I will be right here, microphone off.
yes, but just make sure to get your kids, and that might be awkward if you have to talk about something in front of your kids, but awkward is what we do.
Yeah.
So, Lord Jesus, I thank you so much that you love life, that you love our children even more than we love them, that you've made families in really beautiful and incredible and different ways. And Lord, you are a God who understands suffering, compassion, grace, and mercy. And you are a God of forgiveness. So we thank you for who you are, and your promises are true. We as parents are never going to get this all right, quote unquote. But Lord, we just offer ourselves up to you and ask for your guidance, your wisdom, your discernment. Lord, be clear about, just give us eyes to see and give us hearts to love deeply like you do. Thank you for Hope, Lord. Thank you for her time, her generosity in bringing these important topics to us. Bless her, Lord. Bless the safety of her travels and her beautiful family. And Jesus, we trust you and we love you. In your name we pray. Amen.